Hey, what's up? Welcome to the third part of our tutorial. In this screencast, we're gonna be using Phoenix channels and Mithril.js. So it will be another write-heavy tutorial. So I have created little helper files. So let's get started. First, we need to change our CSS. So let's open up our chat CSS file and just copy and paste this CSS. You can find it in my GitHub repo under appropriate commit. So just copy and paste. Copy and paste. Save our file and let's change our app HTML. So find your method tag and insert here username. So if we have current token and we have user, we can fetch the username and use the current username inside our Mithril, inside our JavaScript. You can find it by meta and this property username. So save this file, close this file, and let's go further. Right, we need to create talks. So open up your terminal and go to your directory and run mix ecto gen migration create talks. And go to prev repo directory and under migrations find out your this is our migration, and now we will create our talks. Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So remember this C text extension. So our name property, our name column will be case insensitive, and then we just reference users as our this table will belong to users, and then we'll create a unique index on name. So our name will be unique. Save this file and mix ecto migrate. And definitely we should create model talk ex. And paste here this code. Ctrl C and Ctrl V. So this is our talk. This is our schema where we define our links, link to user model and the required fields and this basic change set, and that's later on I will explain what that means. This is ecto query. So this is syntax from the ecto query, and you can find ecto here, all the documentation, and here is our query, a query API. So you can find all the syntax DSL here. These are queries. Okay, and then this line, and later on I'll explain why we need to explicitly encode our resource, our data with Poison encoder. Save this file, and then we're gonna change our user so that it will have has many talks. So like this. Alright, and now the next step is to use our channels. You can find all the channels reference documents in the Phoenix framework docs. Here is our channel. So all the docs, all the modules inside. So let's use the channels. Very convenient way to work with WebSockets. So new file which is called talkchannel.x. Save and paste here this code, the long code. Control-C, Control-V. So you can just copy and paste here, and later I'll explain what that means. Of course, we need to change our user socket. First, we're gonna add channel talk. The name, the same name as here. And then I'm gonna change this function to use Guardian GWT, to use Guardian token, to make us able to connect with params fetched from here. Yeah, current token. Okay, so first import Phoenix socket, Guardian Phoenix socket. You can find this module in Guardian README. So let's go to the bottom, and by the way, this is our token. This access, how we access the token. And here, this is our Phoenix sockets where we do connect our socket with Guardian GWT. Yeah, here all the logic is stored here, and here we can use our Guardian Phoenix socket and GWT in our channels. Save this file, and okay, so the next step is to okay, what's the next step? Yeah, we should store our messages when we create our talks, and definitely when we chat we need to store our messages, and I'm gonna use Mnesia database, this Erlang database from the standard library. Here the documentation on the Mnesia, so-called. It has a SQL like syntax, and it makes us able to store tables inside, and it is scalable, so we'll use it. I'm gonna use a simple wrapper for Elixir, which is called Mnesia. So that's the page of this project. Alright, now go back to our text editor and to mix.exs, and let's add Mnesia to our dependencies. And add to your applications. Open up terminal and run mix deps get to fetch Mnesia from the hex.pm. Okay, and now let's close this file, and now we're gonna define the database. Okay, so we will use all these methods from from their GitHub repo. So first go to lib directory, and under slack folder create new file which is called database.ex, and we'll define the database here. Control C and Control V. So very similar to this table. What that means: first we need to create table which is called message with these columns. First talk ID, so message will have the primary key of talk ID, the timestamp, content like body of the message, the username, who created this message, and its ID, and very significant part, the type will be back. So okay, rather than set, we define this type. You can find all the information about types from here. Okay, it's definitely here on this page on the Erlang docs. And we define the types of our columns. The timestamp will be integer and content string and so on. And we define the functions. First, add message, so we will able to add messages to our database, to our table. So this is pipeline. Just write. This is a Mnesia method to write, and the next, read messages. Read by its read message by its primary key. And by the way, the primary key will be defined here. So the first atom in this list will be primary key. Okay, save this file, close this file, and next we should create a room channel. Here all our messages will reside, so the logic will be stored here. Room channel, and I'm gonna paste this long code. Control C and Control V. You can find it in my repos, just copy and paste, and then I will explain. Okay, and don't forget to use to uncomment this line. So we define our channel in our user socket, and then go further. Okay, so we need to install this library, Alertify. So we'll be able to create our nice and stylish alerts. For example, if user joins or user left, these kind of alerts. Okay, here's the latest version of Alertify, and then I'm gonna whitelist this mod to be able to use this as module to import this Alertify.js. Okay, let's go further, and yeah, the most important part of our tutorial is define here our app.js. There's a long file, and I'm just gonna copy and paste it, and then I will go through this file and explain. Okay, first of all, remove this module, and and paste here this long piece of code. Alright, so for the learning purposes, I'm gonna put all the code inside one file, but in the production, in your project, definitely you should split this long file into smaller ones. Alright, once we've done with our JS, we can launch our server, ixmix Phoenix server. Go to our local host, or lvh.me port 4000, and I'm gonna log in with my GitHub account. And here's our chat. Okay, I'm click on talks, and currently we have no talks, so let's add talk. I'm gonna use I don't know, Game of Thrones talk. Submit. Here we have alert, so Game of Thrones added, and this is our talk. So go inside. Here we have another alert that we are joined, and I'm gonna paste here the message. For example, is Jones Snow, or maybe Jones Snow dead? Send. Oh yeah, I forgot one more thing. We need definitely to create our data. Once we have defined our Mnesia, so we should create first our database. So type mix Mnesia create db database and save on disk. Create our DB for storing messages, and then let's try to relaunch our server. Okay, let's go to talks and type Jon Snow dead. Yeah, this is our message. There's another message, so we can create another talk, for example Star Wars talk. Oh, what's going on? Yes, Star Wars talk, and Han Solo dead. Okay, this is our chat. So let's try to just understand how basically that works, how Mithril works with Phoenix channels. Okay, so first we need to find out how works our talks fetching and pushing. First of all, we need to define our socket. So we fetch our GWT, fetch our token from this meta, and then create socket with params of garden token which equals to that token. And if we have this element chat, so if we are on this page, we connect our socket, and that's basically where we can find out and look up if socket is connected or it's error occurred or socket closed. So refresh this page and go to element to the console. Yeah, we have this log that socket is connected, socket is open. And then we fetch the username. Here our username, so we logged the value of this variable, my username. And then it's our helpers, alertify, so you can find out the code on their page, Alertify.js. So that was preliminary, so-called preliminary work, and then we define our app. So this is basically our HTML here, stored here. First of all, we are interested in this block. Here our block. If you are familiar with Mithril, so you know what is code about, or maybe if you come from React, so very similar to React logic. So we have this function, we have this link talks, and when we click on this link, this function is called load talks. This function, and then we just check if our socket connection is open, and yeah, we have this property appvm public. This is a flag, we just check if we are already loaded our talks. It will show us this nice message, so already loaded, no need to reload, you have all these talks. So this is basically what that property is used for. So if connection is open and we haven't loaded yet all our talks, we can load these talks. So we call this function all talks vm load. So let's go further, let's go inside our component, another component, child component of the app. Here are our talks. So we call this function load, and then we check if you have channel, we just leave this channel. But currently we don't have any channel, so just skip that step, and then we define channel. Yeah, this is the property of our VM. Initially it's set to false, and then which we just defined our socket channel will be talks lobby. So this is the name of our channel. And then we join to our channel. And here this signal join event goes to our talk channel here. So we say we join to our channel, and if we join to talks lobby, this is the logic. If authorized, we just send self this hook after join, and this is a handle info function. We say, hey, after join we should fetch all our talks from the from our database. So that's the logic. And remember that let's open up our models. Remember that function public. So we use this function here, talk public, and we say from all the talks fetch all the talks and order by inserted at, order by desk. So pretty straightforward. And then we broadcast this socket, broadcast this event, so-called event, or I don't know, hook, talks loaded, and this payload. All the talks. This is our data that we broadcast to another users, another sockets. Okay, let's go to our load talks, and this event talks loaded. So we say when our talks are loaded, then we just log this message to the console. And let me show how that works. Okay, yeah, got talks, array of these objects, array of our talks. And then go back to our talk model, and how we can do it, how we can convert Elixir maps. So basically we have this map, that's all our maps, how we convert into our JavaScript object. And that's why we need this line, derive Poisson encoder only ID, mother ID, and name. It will encode, simply saying encode our Elixir maps into JavaScript objects. Okay, once we got talk, we call this function success, and pass in our talks array of this object. And here our success method. First we set the prop data to my data, to our talks. This is a Mithril prop. Initially it's false, set to false. Okay, then we don't have any error error message, and then just redraw our component. So by doing this, implementing this logic, here we have all our talks. And that's the view for these talks. Okay, yeah, we have our data. Check if data is not empty or is not null. We'll just render this. Yeah, that's our component for every talk. Li with ID of its ID, similar to keys in React.js. Okay, and now we should be able, definitely should be able to add talks. How we can do it? First we need to click on this button, and that's the logic for this. Here is our button, looks like this, and we say when we click on this button we call this function load form. When we load this form, our button shown property is set to false, so we'll be able to disappear. Yeah, this button will disappear. That's the logic. And when this button will disappear, this component will be shown. It's called talk form. Let's go further, go inner. So this is the child of our talks. Here is HTML for that component, and then we say, okay, first we need to input, I don't know, maybe Warcraft talks, and our input automatically will bind to the new talk property, this property of talk form component. And then when we click on button submit, we call this function, yeah, submit. And then if our socket is connected, then we call send talk function from the parent component and pass in this property Warcraft talks. So let's go outside of this component to the parent. This is our function send talk, and then we should check if our talk, if our new talk, if our input is not empty, we will add to our database, for example submit. You see this is the error message, fill in input. Okay, once we have our newly typed create talk, we can push it to our channel, Phoenix channel, the event push talk. Go to our talk channel, push talk. Here we define our current resource. So this is from Guardian Phoenix socket. We define our current user. Current user is me, and define talk params. First of all, fetch the name of our talk, yeah, payload. Yeah, this is our payload. So name will be payload, Warcraft talk, and the mother ID will be a user ID, current user ID. And then just insert to our repo, Ecto repo. After that, if we have been successfully inserted our talk into repo, we can broadcast. So talk added, and pass in the name of our talk, the ID, and the modder. Okay, we have this event, talk added, and let's go to our channel, and here's our event. So we say on talk added, just add to our current data, on shift or add, and show success message. Show success, this is a function we defined earlier with alertify here. Okay, if for example we have error, we just push this event. So when we broadcast, everybody, every user who have subscribed, who have joined to this topic will watch this message. But push socket, this event will be passed only to you, only to the current user. So we will have this error. Alright, and if we, for example, if we leave the channel, we just broadcast this message: leave lobby. And on this event, just console, just log to console user leaving, for example. Open up your console, for example, add to talks, try to reload. Okay, it's working. And this is basically how our talks are working, how we can fetch all talks and add all talks. And let's try to sign in with another user so we can check if our broadcast messages are working. I'm gonna sign in with user Joe. Here we are joining to our talks lobby, and then try to add another talk. Let's say it will be StarCraft. Okay, we have StarCraft talk in our first window and the second window, so every user can watch this event, and the data has been this talk has been unshifted to our current list of talks. Okay, now once we've loaded our talks, we just click on that talk and load our messages for this talk. First of all, we need to define this logic. in our all talks. Here we can iterate our talks, and then we say, when we click on the name of our talks, we should load the chat and pass in all the member is the talk. To pass in the talk, this object as a parameter, as an argument. So load talk chat, go to our VM. Yeah, here we'll load talk chat. And inside that function we call another function from the parent component. Parent component app. We say from this component call this function one talk and pass in the name of our talk and ID and mother ID as arguments. So let's go to our parent component. Yeah, here is our function. First we need to check if we have socket opened, connected, and then if we pass this check, we just save. Inside chat component, inside this component, this huge big component, call this function main tab. And pass in parameters ID and mother. This is a mother ID, so user who created this talk, and the ID of this talk. The main tab. And we set props, this prop active talk to the name of our current talk. So we'll be able to change, yeah, initially it has this points, and then when we load it changes to the name of our talk. So that's why I've created this property. Okay, let's go to our main tab. Skip the form. Here's our component chat. We have view model and controllers and views, and inside view model we have this function main tab. Alright, we have socket connected, and then if we have room channel, this channel, just leave this channel. But we currently don't have any channel, so it's initially set to false. We just say the talk ID property of our chat will be ID of our talk, and moderator will be moder. First, obviously, you need to set initial default values, set to 0, and here 0. Okay, and then define the channel. Very similar logic as in talks, but rather than talks lobby we just say the rooms and the ID of talk. For example, this is the talk with ID of 3, so this channel will be rooms 3, and then we join this channel. The similar logic, first check if authorized. We need to fetch our talk, check if we have any talk with this ID. After that, define our current user, and then make the transaction. This is Mnesia transaction, and the selection what that means. That line means we say, okay, now we have our talk ID of 3, and then fetch all messages from this with the primary key of 3, and select the content, username, timestamp, and user ID. Maybe we should, yeah, fetch these messages. And then after that we need to map this function, so we convert this list to this map. Basically all our messages initially, they will look like a list of lists, and we just convert to a list of maps. With these properties: body to the content, user to username, add to timestamp, and user ID to user ID. And then send self this event, user joined, and pass in these parameters. First, new user, current user, which has been joined, and all the messages for that talk. And then we have this hook handle info, the function handle info. First we define our room ID. In this case it will be 1, and then just broadcast to all users who join. The new user has been joined, and all the messages. Okay, now let's go to app.js, and here while event user joined, this event user joined, our messages will be this is the messages, this is called the prop of Mithril. It will be equal to this, all these messages, and we just show log user is joined. Okay, or maybe we don't want to re-render all our messages on every user joined event, so let's split this event into 2 events. First we need to broadcast to all our users that new user has joined, and here we define, so uncomment these lines. Okay, when user joined, alert will appear. Control C, and then we have another function which is called push socket, and event, so will be the payload will be messages, will be equal to messages, and the event will be, let's say, I'm joined. So this event will be passed to only this user, current user. save this file and let's create another hook. In this case it will be called I'm joined, redraw, and we don't need this line anymore since our alert will be shown from here. Let's check if we don't have any syntax errors. Seems like not. Okay, now our messages, this prop will be equal to payload messages. Okay, and then how we render our messages. First we create this block, messages block, and pass in this component, the child component, messages, and another child component, message input. Yeah, this is the message input, and there's a list of our messages. Go further, here's our child component messages, and we just map over all messages, fetch the user of this message, moderator, checked if current user that is logged in is moderator. If we are moderate, this icon will appear. That means this is my channel and I am the moderator of this channel. And the date time. We passed in this empty string, so we don't have our date time shown so far. And the message input. Okay, pretty straightforward. Right now we should, for example, we want to write another messages. Okay, first we need to bind this value to our prop, the prop of message input. It will be called txt. So we say the value of this input is txt. And when we click on this send button, we call this function send. Okay, this function first checked if our socket is opened, and then check if our txt, if this value is not empty. So if we try to send an empty message, it will just show alert to fill in your input. And then if everything is okay, we call this function chat_vm send new message and pass in the value of our this message. Okay, let's go to our parent and find out the send new message function. Okay, so first of all we need to define the date and convert to a timestamp. Yeah, this is the logic. Create new date, current date, and get time and convert to timestamp, and then push this event to our channel, new MSG, and this is a payload, the object with the body of our message and the timestamp, current timestamp. So let's go to our new message event. This is our payload, and then we find out current user who is sending the message. Find the current talk ID, the ID of this talk, and then create transaction, Mnesia transaction. Inside Mnesia transaction we put this message, add message, this function. We defined this function previously here, add message. Pass in these arguments such as username, ID, talk ID, the body of message, and a timestamp. Alright, now we successfully created our transaction, and okay, we have our message stored inside Mnesia, and then we just need to broadcast the event, a new message, to all our current users, the users on this chat, on this topic. Okay, this event and the payload, our message. Okay, let's go back to our chat component, and yeah, we say on new message, just push this payload, yeah, this object encoded by Poison, to our messages, and redraw. Or maybe we just don't need redraw, but let's figure out. Okay, when we pushed, it will be shown here. So I will try to uncomment, save this file, go to our Game of Thrones talk, and I don't like Ned Stark. Okay, it's not showing, so we need to properly redraw our component. Okay, now it's showing, but we have very annoying feature. So when we just send our new talk, it appends on the bottom, but it's not showing. So we need to properly fix that issue. Mithril has the very convenient method which is called config. So let's find out our messages list. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, messages list, and we just call config scrolled to bottom. So our window, this block, will be always scrolled to bottom. And then pass in this function as our config. So it says once our components are ready, are rendered, we can perform this action, scroll to bottom. This is from Mithril, it comes from Mithril. First we fetch this element and checked if it's initialized and the context, so we don't need it. We just say element scrolled, always scrolled to bottom. Okay, yes, or maybe something else, and another message, and let's try to type another message. Okay, always on bottom. I will scroll to top and then type message Chewbacca. Yeah, it will be scrolled to bottom. Convenient. Alright, now what we have to do, alright, we need to convert our timestamp to the actual date, human readable date. Okay, let's go to our this component, Mithril component, message date, and pass in this, type this config convert timestamp. Config convert timestamp, and then define this function here. Control C, Control V. First we will check if the component is initialized. Is not initialized, so we should fetch timestamp from the date time. Here is our date time, this is our timestamp, and then we just convert to the date. This is the method I found on GitHub Gist. Alright, this is GitHub Gist. This is the method. From this guy K Maida. Okay, and after that we have our time, we define our time, just set the inner HTML of our date time will be time, and then save, and let's try to load, and here we have our nice human readable time. Right, so let's try to reload our Joe, and I'm going to Game of Thrones. Okay, we have this nice message, use Joe joined, and for example if we join to another talk. Here we have Joe joined, and here the previous channel we have Joe left alert. So let's go back to our Game of Thrones and let's try to type a new message as Joe. Let's say Joe was here or Joe is here. Send. Here we have Joe is here. Since Joe is not moderator, so we don't have this icon here. The moderator is Ulan. If, for example, we join to StarCraft, here I'm joining to StarCraft and say StarCraft is awesome. Okay, here in this talk Joe is the moderator, and if Ulan passes yes, yeah, Ulan is not moderator here. So I'm closing. Joe left. Seems like so far it's working. Okay, I'm gonna move that functions to the top of our file. Yeah, probably here. Definitely in your production app you should put this function into separate file, but I'm just leave it here. Okay, it seems like our chat is working, but we have one more thing. We need to store online users, so we need to store all the users currently on this talk, on this topic, and I'm gonna cover this part of our whole tutorial in the next screencast. We'll be using Erlang and OTP for that functionality, and for today that's all, and thank you very much, and bye bye.